Welcome to the Windsurfing podcast. We are back in the caravan. It is sweltering hot, but we have had some wind the last couple of days. And I thought we didn't do a podcast yesterday. We've been doing lots of lives, but with all this wave sailing going on, I thought maybe a few of you, if you're not into wave sailing already, might be getting the bug, might be thinking summer's coming up, small waves. And I thought we'd do like a little intro to waves. This might change during this podcast, depending what the questions we're going to get, because you guys, obviously this is live, you guys can give us your questions and we'll do our best to answer them and to go through a few things of maybe, you know, some that are not even asked to the questions. We'll run through the kind of basics and we'll see how it goes. And I say we. Well, I am joined by someone. I'm joined with my partner in crime on the Send It Academy. We do the coaching clinics in Cape Town. Any of you, if you're in the chat, have been on them, you will know. If you've been on the windsurf coaching over in Tenerife or in Ireland or in Baja, he's been around. He's been in Club Vass. It is, of course, Mr. Colin Dixon. There it is.
How's it going?
I'm good, man. I'm good. So Colin is over in Tenerife at the moment. That's where he's based. So if you do like what you hear today and you think, you know what, that guy seems like a good guy, he knows his stuff, and you want to book on a clinic or something, you can check him out. Where? Windsurf Coaching?
Somewhere? Yeah, windsurfcoaching.com. Come and see me in Tenerife. Not that we've had much wind lately, but
okay, so just let's clear something up. If you think you've been hard done to by wind and you think, oh, these guys in the Canaries, these guys in Portugal are killing it, we are not. It has been terrible. I don't know what for you, Cole, but it's been terrible.
It's been raining here. We've had some wind from the right-hand side. It's the opposite side for what we normally get in Tenerife. But yeah, it's been raining. It's been a bit like England. Well, actually, England's been sunny.
And I have heard England and Holland. I spoke to who did I spoke? I spoke to a few people, but Brouwers Dam has been going off. Marco Lufin tells me it's just been windy every day. So anyway, it's good to hear that you guys, if you had some wind, have been scoring. If you haven't, don't worry. Same for all of us. If you've been tuning into Fiji, you will see those guys have been scoring, but that looked pretty terrifying. So that kind of sums up what we're going to do. Stefan is tuned in. Good to see. We got Mikkel's, me too. Yes, good to hear. What we got? Zandvoort. Now, that's a nice place to sail. Well, I've never been there, but...
Also got a good Formula One track, that place.
Oh, there we go. Oh, near the Formula One. There we go.
Near the F1. There we go.
Okay, so I tell you what, let's... So I just saw this comment. It says still in Rill. Yeah, I'm in the caravan. People are looking at me. We've got house renovations going on. It's a disaster.
Isn't it build a bend nowadays?
Oh, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you one thing it is. It's hot in a caravan in Portugal. I am cooking. Look at me. This is not a tan. This is absolute cooking. Okay, so we're going to do intro to waves. Any questions in the comments, let us know. We'll bang through them. We'll go through a couple of stuff. I think we probably best to start off with kit. I think that's like a really good place to start. So if you've got any kit questions, whack them in the comments and we'll go through them. Hang on, we do have our first question, Carl. We got Swedish Whale. I'm guessing you're a big fella. He says, question, what is the number one skill you should have before attempting to go wave sailing? How efficient in the water start is good enough? Cole, over to you.
It depends on the location, of course. You know, that it's all location based. Like you could go, for example, we do an intro to waves in Brazil in Jerry, and it's the easiest place ever you could teach a beginner because there's so much distance between the waves. But then if you go somewhere like Rosniger where it's quite onshore and it's windy and big and it's the first time in the waves, it could be quite hectic. So definitely picking, you know, the right conditions for your level. But I reckon confident water starting for sure. And being able to get on a freestyle wave is definitely something that you want to try and achieve. And yeah, just make sure it's safe and don't go out when it's really gnarly, I reckon.
Yeah. I'd say that's probably the number one. It sounds obvious, and maybe not to everyone, but you've got to pick your location. There's no point in rocking up. You've seen like Who Keeper on all the videos, and you're like, right, I want to be a wave sailor. Where's the best place to go? Apparently Who Keeper. And you rock up there and you go straight on the rocks. I have seen it before. I won't lie. I bounced off the rocks my first time there. You need to know the spot you're sailing. So start off small waves, get comfortable. And like the Swedish Whale was saying, water start is a good idea of how good you are. But don't be fooled, because it's all right water starting when it's flat water and there's no waves around. But you add a few little waves to the mix, a little bit of a rip tide pulling under, and it changes a lot. A little bit of panic. I remember the first time I went to Rosniger, which is a beach cross on shore, Port Tack in North Wales. It's quite a roughly softish wave. My first time sailing there was like 2000, I remember. And I was terrible. I honestly was terrible. The waves kept hitting me one after another. And where I could water start quite easily and do lots of things easily, I kept getting smacked out of position. So, you know, you've got to know when to start. And I was getting closer to the rocks and blah, blah, blah. So,
it's Rosniger is quite an easy place to sail, but it is quite scary if you've never sailed there, because you have got those rocks downwind and they come up really quickly. I think, yeah, definitely pick somewhere nice and easy, cross shore. If it's cross off, or if you want to learn to wave ride down the line, if it's safe, of course, you know, if it's a nice easy beach, not off cliffs and savage reef like Nalu or somewhere. But yeah, good call.
I think that's a good point as well. So we're going to bounce around a bit because it's going to be difficult not to. But let's just go through the different wind directions and probably how easy they are, and it will make a difference how big the waves are. So let's start off with onshore. Now, onshore is probably the hardest. There's no two ways about it. To learn to ride waves, to sail out, to get anywhere in onshore, if there's a sizable wave, at least nipple high, it's difficult. It is one of the most difficult conditions, because when you're trying to get out, the wave hits you from the side. And when it hits you from the side, your board gets knocked downwind, you bear off and you lose all your height. You might end up back on the beach. So onshore, boat onshore is very difficult. Silt on the World Cup, if you've seen it, is probably a good example of the most difficult wave sailing you will ever do in your life. You could probably sail mast high Margaret River easier than you could sail silt. And I'm not joking. All you have to do is make it out, and you can stay on the shoulder, which is the side of the wave. And then there's a channel, which is flat, and you could ride a really big wave without being in too much trouble. Not suggesting you do that, but you could. So I would say onshore would be the hardest. Cross shore would be the most favorable for getting out, being able to get back in. Obviously, we're talking no bigger. I would say nipple high is big enough when you're first starting. You know, head high is pretty big. So somewhere like waist high is an ideal time to start with that size of wave. And then we could move on to sort of cross on and cross off. Now, cross on, obviously better for jumping, but harder for riding. And then cross off is amazing for riding when you're learning, if it's not too big and if the wave isn't too gnarly.
Yeah, for sure. There's some really nice, easy places where it's cross off. And the good thing about cross off is you can just sheet in and run away quite easy. As you said, with onshore, the problem with onshore is all that water coming in and you got nowhere to go. And it's like, whoa, you can catch yourself out really nasty. We spend a lot of time here in Tenerife just teaching people how to get out and use the gap between the waves. You know, if it's turning around or just getting going. And also wave riding, really hard. If you can onshore wave ride, you can pretty much onshore anywhere in the world. We get a lot of people in the clinic that are used to down the line, don't we? And then they used to really raking the sail back, and it's a completely different ball game when it's onshore.
I was going to say, just to go to basics, that the reason why cross offshore is easier to wave ride is when you're traveling down the wave, you've got power in your sail. So, you know, you're already going down the wave and you can really concentrate on just moving the board up and down the wave, even without doing aggressive bottom turns or top turns. You can kind of forget about the sail almost when you're first learning, just to feel that power of the wave. When it's more cross shore, you've got to open up the sail, you've got to get to the lip. The timing is a question. And then obviously when you go more cross onshore, you're really opened up, you're twisted around, and it gets very hard. So like Colin said, if you learn in cross on, transferring it over to down the line or cross off is definitely easier. Definitely easier.
You feel like a god when it's cross off. That's the problem. And then sometimes if you only sail cross off, if you're lucky enough to live somewhere where it's just down the line all the time, and then you go somewhere where it's onshore, it ruins you. It's like suddenly it's like, oh, I thought I could wave ride, you know, and now I can't even bottom turn. I just get backwinded and smacked in the face.
Yeah, it's 100% true, you know, 100% true. Okay, I was going to look through the comments because I know it's going to be difficult. Because
just going back on that, Ben, it's also what you want to get out of wave sailing. If you want to go somewhere where it's just you know, some people get to an age where they don't really want to jump and they don't want to go to pozo. You know, the knees can't handle it, so they look for somewhere where it's cross off. Or some people are just, you know, if you're young and you're into it, some people love jumping, so that's when you go somewhere like Tenerife or pozo or, you know, rally. Sorry.
I tell you what, let's go through just out of our heads good places to learn to wave ride in the world. You know, guys who are getting into waves, to early stages of getting into waves, friendly, easier places to ride. Like,
okay, you got to break it into two. You got to go port tack or starboard. You know, it depends if you're left foot or right foot forward.
Yeah, and also there's been a confusion when we watch in Fiji. So the way we determine if it's port or starboard tack is not what we're talking about, the actual picture we're watching. It is the tack the wind is coming from compared to the beach. So if you're on the beach looking out, if the wind is coming from the left, from left to right, it's a port tack spot. So it means you will be going out with your left hand at the front of the boom, which means you'll be riding actually on starboard tack. But if I said to Colin, oh, it's a port tack, you know, port tack spot, you would be starboard tack riding. I know that confuses people, you know, who keep Maui is starboard tack. You sail out with your right hand at the front, but you actually ride with your left hand. And some people are very favorable to either tack. My question or thought for you guys who are just getting into it would be, don't get that stuck in your head. Like, people will tell you it and it's hard not to, but actually when I learned, I didn't have a clue that it was any different. I just did.
I actually learned on my bad tack for 4 years until I realized I was the other tack. 4 years in Australia, and then I went to Brazil and learned more in 2 weeks than I did in 4 years. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it definitely does make a difference. But I tell you, if you don't think of it like that,
exactly.
You just saw Takuma Sugi sailing one of his first ever down the line spots in Fiji. He made the final. He smashed up his face on the reef, but he did make the final. I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah, for sure. It's like if you think about, you know, snowboard, it's really easy because you just naturally want to go your normal foot. But with windsurfing, when you learn the calf drive, like, do you know which side better? Your calf driving, left foot or right foot forward? Really, is there a difference for racing?
I think, you know what, a lot of the time it's more the one you practice a lot on, but I actually don't mind either way.
Exactly. You know, you just don't really think about it. So it's a good mindset to get into that, like with wave riding too, as you said, you know.
Yeah. So like spots we're going to talk about, I think Brandon Bay is one that just comes out at me.
Yeah. It's one of my favorites, definitely on the definitely should be on everybody's bucket list. If you can handle the weather. We normally go there around about September time, where you get like the storms, some sort of, you know, South America and stuff, and you can kind of get some epic swell days. It's always cross off. Also, it's on a peninsula, so you can get both tacks. Like, we go there, you know, each year, and it can be starboard tack for a week and then port tack. But it's always like pure wave sailing down the line. It's really good.
And I was going to say, the good thing with Brandon Bay, it's a bay, so it goes all the way around. So as long as you get that wind from like the southwest or south or west, you can find a cross off down the line spot. And the more you go up to the bay, the smaller the waves get. So, you know, if it's a bit big for you, you can kind of go further up, get a bit more offshore usually, and it's smaller.
It's a really good place for, as you said, go really gnarly right at the beginning, or as it's massive, because it does get very big there. You can go, you know, much smaller as you go down the beach. And the beauty about it is you can just drive down the beach, literally just like hammer it down the beach if you got the vehicle to do it. Also, just Brandon Bay, it's also on the peninsula of Dingle, so you do get, you know, have you ever had inch? Is it inch? You ever had inch on it?
Yeah, inch. Yeah.
That
southeast.
Yeah, that could be really good. It can funnel through there really nice. What about if you had to drop, where's your favourite sort of down the line? I think I know.
Actually, just while we're doing this, let me know in the comments. Like, maybe there's some experienced wave sailors there. Maybe you can help put some tips out there. You guys are all around the world. It'd be really interesting. I would say Geraldton, like Coronation Beach, like it's in Australia, so it's not close for a lot of people. But that is probably one of the most perfect spots for getting into wave sailing. No beach break. You know, a flat water reef, little waves building up, bigger waves, and the waves are, you know, they can be quite powerful, but they're not so consequential. So I would say that spot for me would be a place, if I had to recommend to anywhere, and it was anywhere in the world you could go, that would be, if not the top, very, very high on the list.
For everything too, because it can go cross off like in the evening or when it first comes in. It can be really good there. It's like the best skate park in the world, Coronation Beach, isn't it?
Yeah.
With the little kickers on the inside.
Amazing. I mean,
and then you got up the road, if you can handle the reef and the clear water and thinking that you're going to die each time, you got Nalu. But that could be quite, for your first time wave sailing, it can be quite full on.
For your first time, too shallow. You know, you know, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's so much to cover, and I'm scared to jump around too much. But you have to be careful when you get into wave sailing. Reef sailing can be amazing, could be perfect, but when you're just getting in, people have a tendency to kick out. You know, they fall in, they kick out, and you have to. I mean, the reef sailing does teach you not to do that pretty quickly. Which is good, but you should always practice that. Even if you're sailing, you know, in boots or you're sailing in a sandy spot, get in the habit of not jumping off straight onto the sand, because you never know what is underneath. I've seen so many people do it. Sometimes it can be just the bottom is a lot shallower than you think, and you end up buckling your knee. I've nearly done that a few times. You know, sometimes there's just a random rock or a hole or something like that, you know, and it can ruin a year. You never know what can happen. So get into the habit of kind of slowly dropping into the water. Or
it can also happen in the sand. It could be like cobbler fish or anything like that. So starfish, no?
Yeah.
Like, make sure you're always a starfish, then use your volume with your board, and then check your feet before you do anything. Make sure what's behind you.
No, but true. And, you know, make sure when you're kicking to water start, you kick to the side. You know, honestly, it's really good training. Even if you're sailing the deepest water ever, get used to like this side scissor kick. It will save you. If you ever go to Maui, ever go to some of these crazy cool places, it can ruin your trip. Just one kick of the reef. You know, yes, you can wear shoes, but you never know what, even with shoes on, sometimes it can be pretty dangerous.
I think Nalu's a wonder for that. I've still got scars from just literally touching the reef there.
Yeah.
And it can be quite dangerous too, black poison and stuff. But you can get some nice reef. There's some nice flat shells out there too. There's soft rocks that I like to call in the Canaries. We have soft rocks.
Mike on a comment says low tide at Worthing, small and spaced out.
Yeah, that would be really good. Starboard tack, onshore. I've had some epic days down in, what they call it, Shorekeeper. Is that around there, isn't it? Near Worthing. Just next door. That could be quite full on though. We were talking about onshore and shore dumps and stuff. There on a high tide, that's a place that you don't want to be. When they used to do the PWA down in Shoreham, I can remember just watching all like the old school pros just get absolutely worked in the shore dump. It's like savage.
Yeah. High tide can be the worst. And just for anyone, again, we're just going to be bunging out some information in this podcast. But high tide, the reason it's bad is, like you can see there, Mike saying low tide. The reason it's low tide is because then it breaks on the sand, I'm guessing, coming in. As soon as you get high tide, it's too deep to break on the sand. So then all that energy just gets to the beach and then just dumps in one heavy go. Yeah. And it can be brutal. I saw Simon Bornhoff at Haley once.
Yeah, it's the stones that get sucked up. You can be like up to your nipples and suddenly go, and then half the beach just comes down onto your head.
Okay, I've got a story. My first ever trip to the seaside with my dad. Budding young windsurfer, you know, don't want to mentally scar him. Yes, mentally scarred. I still can see the stones flying in front of my eyes. No joke. Marazine, which is not a massive wave spot by any means, small shore dump, young kids, probably about 10, maybe 11, triangle sail, going in for the beach start. you know, nose pointing out to sea, first wave, dumps on top of the sail, flattens me on the beach. I'm cling film with my face in this. I can still see the PVC window like wrapped around my head, and there's stones flying around, and I can't move. I'm literally like cling wrapped to the beach. And then I feel the pressure.
Dangerous.
Yeah, as the wave starts to drop out, I feel the pressure go. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to get up, and then boom, another one.
Yeah.
I had that. It feels like 10 times, but it was probably 3 or 4 times. I honestly thought I was going to die. I managed on the last one to get out of the clue, like bang, I got a breath before like my dad actually rescued me, and he was laughing. And I honestly thought I was going to die. And that honestly mentally scarred me. I then went into racing for like 10 years. This
is dangerous, this way sailing. Yeah, but that's exactly it, though. We don't, like, the first time I went wave sailing was in Devon on the North Coast, and I couldn't work out why people were taking 4.7s and stuff. And I was like, fucking, you know, excuse my French. I was like, right, I'm going to take a 6.5, you know, 2-cam sail on my slalom board, went straight out off the beach, hit the first wave, went straight through it, catapulted, and then just got destroyed and broke everything. I was like, brilliant, this wave sailing's pretty hard. But that was down to my dad also not really having a clue and going, yeah, you'll be all right, lad, it's windy. You know, and I thought also I'll be all right, but no, didn't survive.
Okay, I'm just going to go through the comments. Waggy Wagstaff says Big Bay in Cape Town. It can be on a small day when it's not too busy.
When it's
definitely not on a big day.
It has big gaps. You want big gaps between the waves. That's where like Ireland's really good, and most of these places you have good time and distance between the sets, you know, or the waves, the peak period. That's what we want to be looking for. I'm going to have to say my favourite, because I am left foot forward, is as we're getting a few mentions, is Punta San Carlos in Baja. Like, for me, that is the place that you learn to wave sail. That is just, you know, I always thought before I went there that you had to be a certain level, but actually that is, if you can water start good and you're confident on, you know, even a 100 litre 105 like freestyle wave, you learn to wave ride there because it's so consistent and every time, you know, and that's definitely for me the place, like, as long as it's kind of small.
Yeah. Kanaha, we had and I would agree.
Kanaha is really nice, yeah.
I mean, the good thing you're looking for some of these spots is you don't want any shore break. I mean, in an ideal world. So like Gero in like Coronation Beach in Australia, no shore break. Kanaha, no shore break. You can literally sail between the wave and the beach in total flat, well, not total flat water, choppy water, but you can sail without any consequence. And then you can kind of build yourself into the waves. In an ideal world, there'd be a channel on the side. So the way the wave breaks, it would be more a reef break if that's going to happen, or, you know, a sandbank. But then it would mean on the side there is just flat water, and that can also be really useful if it's bigger than you want to kind of venture out into.
So I'm just reading some of these comments. I just joined. I'm still beginner level. Always saying just been to Boa Vista, Cape Verde. We always see Cape Verde in the competition. That's always quite full on.
Is that a beginner spot?
No, but if you go to somewhere, is it Boa Vista next door?
Boa Vista, yeah.
Yeah, there's a really nice centre there that's really quite cruisy. It's not so full on. I definitely agree. You know, where they do the competition, I wouldn't recommend learning to wave sail there. But if you go to one of the islands next door, Planet Windsurf have a nice Goya centre there. They're on a bit of a point break, I think it is.
Okay. Barbados.
I don't know about the seaweed.
I was about to say, if anyone does, it should be you.
But Barbados is actually really nice. It's onshore, but again, you don't have that. You can get a bit of a savage shore dump there, but you have a bit of distance between the waves.
I would say I went to Barbados 2001. It was my first real wave sailing trip away from home, and I thought it was epic. We got a bit lucky with the wind, but it's light. It's a light wind. I actually learned to backloop in Barbados. Did my first ever ones. It was so easy. It's so light, the wind, and the waves quite punchy, but
That's why I
But
did
my
my first one.
hands.
My only one-handers really there.
Oh, really?
Your hands is because of the temperature. You
My
about to say
hands
your
just
hands
fell
went really
apart.
soft. Yeah,
They fell
that's
apart.
because of the temperature. If you go somewhere anywhere like Margarita, Bonaire, or the Barbados, it's the temperature. It just makes your skin really soft and it's savage because you get a little cut, and then it just turns into a massive hole. But I've got Barbados. I've had epic too. Like it's but the problem is I think you just got to pick the right time of the year to go. And I've had it 4/7 weather, like going off in Barbados. It's really good. I've got really lucky there. Nice place.
Eric Decker tuning in.
Decker, he's had another baby, hasn't he? Decker, he's on number 2. Congratulations.
Popping them out. He says the wall in Cabeza is safe.
Yeah, the wall's really good. Tenerife's a really good place to intro the wave because you have you have sort of the bay where all the centres are, and then you have the wall for a bit better for wave sailing because again, you get in any trouble, you just get drifted out to the deepness. And then you have Cabeza where they do the World Cup, and upwind of Cabeza where that can be anything from mast high to really easy sailing. It depends on the tides. But yeah, Decker's right. I've seen Decker swim quite a lot after his gear around near the wall. It's been a while, Decker. What about
Dominican Republic?
Yeah,
have you ever sailed there? I mean, that looks good from the stuff I've seen from the feedback I've got. It sounds kind of Barbados-ish, is it?
Yes, I don't think the problem with all the Caribbean islands is they're not that windy. I think you just need to make sure you get it at the right time of the year where it's windiest. So it'd be like there'll be 2 months where it'll be at its peak. That's the problem in most of these places. You just need to be there at the right time. It's even like Baja, for example, at the end of the season, August, September, the wind's quite light. So if you're quite a heavy person, you're better off going at the beginning of the season, in May time where it's a lot windier but can be a little bit colder. So again, Australia's the same though. The Canaries, we're lucky; it's pretty windy all the time here.
Dama Bay, apparently, Muzza says.
Dama Bay can be all time, man. I've had some epic sessions on the bar there. Again, Cornwall can offer some really good intro to wave sailing places. Dama Bay, I definitely wouldn't say Gwyvion on your first time to wave sail.
If it's small.
Yeah, well, if it's small, for sure, definitely. The problem with Gwyvion, you're at the car park, you're so high up, you're looking down, go, oh yeah, that's really small. And then it was actually with Muzza once, there was like 8 sponsored sailors there looking down, going, oh yeah, why are they not going out? And then we were all there just at the same point at the lineup going, go on, you go first. And it's like, quick chicken jive. It can be really big there. But again, when it's cross off, as long as your timing is right, it can be pretty easy to get out. You just need to time it right, and you need to keep an eye on the sets and stuff. So that's
Viana de Castelo in Portugal, that can be really good. Again, you can move up the beach and it gets smaller, and then more your confidence. I mean, you've got to obviously have the forecast to make that happen. I'm sure like Klipmuller, like the fish factory as well, like up that top end can be super nice, like friendly waves. Avon,
we've had some really good easy sailing there.
Huh?
Paternoster.
Paternoster. I mean, Tyree, I would say that's a solid one. I don't know where he's gone, but he's gone. We just lost him. But yeah, like I was just about to say, Tyree can be a really good spot to get. Let's get him back. Here he is.
Sorry.
That's all right. No, I was saying Tyree's pretty good. That can be super nice. Avon Beach, Christchurch, in South Coast.
Avon can be really good, man. The Witterings down on the South Coast the sandbars change all the time. But I can remember some years it's some of the best places and some of the best wave riding ever down at the Witterings. But again,
someone asked actually, is there a good beginner wave spot in Greece?
They have some good waves. I just don't think it's very consistent. It's not like you go to Australia, it's trade winds or it's a sea breeze or whatever. It's always the same direction. I think it's a bit stormy in Greece, some of the spots. I'm not sure though. I could be wrong. I always just thought Greece was kind of windy and flat for most places. Rally.
Okay, so Raphael, it says sailed a lot of Ross Niger, but struggle elsewhere. Any ideas for saving your gear in bigger breaking waves when you get caught up after a wipeout? Yes. So I'd be interested to know actually where else you've tried and what your particular struggles are. Is it the struggle with the wave? Because Ross Niger's got quite a friendly wave, I would say. It can be, on a big day, it can be pretty meaty, but most of the time it's quite a soft, friendly wave. Couple of thoughts on gear. It will get technical because this is kind of audio only, so it's difficult to point out certain things. But I would say key one is to, if it's a big wave coming and you don't want to break any equipment, you have to get the sail from being flat on the water like that to like that. If your sail's like that and the wave hits it, flat. And so for anyone listening audio only, I'm talking if your sail is flat on the deck, like flat along the water, if a wave hits that and you've got a 5-meter sail, you've obviously got 5 square meters where the wave can hit it. Every square meter of water is a ton. So if it's only a meter thick, that's 5 tons straight on your equipment. If you can get your sail at any angle opposed to flat, when it hits it, it will pull it down and it can't get any traction on the sail. The only problem with doing this is you're going to be in the water for a bit, because obviously after the wave has passed you, your rig is going to be under the water. So you could really use this technique where you sit on the mast, you pull the boom up, you do whatever you can to get that sail kind of upright. If you think that wave's going to properly smash you. If not, the best trick is to get it out of the water. But you want to be, your sail needs to be closer to the wave than your board. The main idea of this is if the wave's coming and you can get your sail up, your board's pointing towards the beach. When the wave hits you, it will push the board closer to the beach because the board's buoyant and it will pull the sail along with you. You can then kind of hold the sail and ride it for a little bit. So there's a couple of good things with that. The one thing is it gets you closer to the beach. And then if the wave break, the next one, because usually waves come in set, the wave won't break closer to the beach. Usually it gets bigger as the set comes on, so it'll break further out. But if you stay in the same spot, you pretty much might get the next one on the head as well. So you're trying to get closer to the beach, and then you've got a better chance of getting back up. I don't know how that came across just explaining with words, but
I think also when you wipe out, the first thing you kind of want to suss out is what's coming behind you. There's no point trying to get all your gear and then suddenly there's a mast-high wave about to launch onto your head, and just also changing where the breaking wave is and just getting out of that area a little bit would really help. Holding on 99% of the time, Ben, I'd say most of the time, if you hold on, even if you're holding on for dear life, that extra 2 seconds is probably about 15 meters of swimming.
Yeah.
Most of the time, would you ever let go? Well, sometimes I've seen a few John Skyte who keep a. You've
got to know. I mean, there's a good rule, which is don't get your gear in between you and the wave. This is a very good rule.
Yeah.
If the gear's in between you and the wave, when you're riding it and the wave hits you, the gear's going to hit you. If you're in the water swimming, you don't want your gear between you and the wave. It's going to end badly. So that's a really, really good tip. What else? I'm just trying to think of ones that are easy to explain. But I think that's the key ones. Like Colin said, there's a good rule of thumb. Like I've seen this happen so many times. You're riding a wave, you're on the clinic and they're riding this wave and it's quite big and they're kind of riding it towards the end of the wave. So it's fattening up a bit sometimes. And they're like, I'll just get off it. And they don't look, they just jibe. And then as they jibe, they look up and they go, oh, shoot. And there's usually a big set coming. And then you're in a horrible position. So just a good tip is you're riding the wave. You're coming to the end of the ride. You're about to jibe off it. Look over your shoulder before you jibe. Because if there's a set coming, you might not want to jibe. You might want to carry on riding this rubbish wave just a bit further until you can jibe, and then the wave's already broken, and then you can make your way out. Or maybe you head back to the beach. Maybe it's just a massive set.
There's nothing wrong with that. A good chicken jibe. There's no shame in that sometimes. Turning around, coming back, getting your breath, maybe let the set go and then go again. We have that quite a lot in Cape Town, huh?
Yes, definitely. Definitely sometimes comes in to have a, oh, okay.
Definitely if you're having a swim and you're holding on for your gear and then you just like let it drag you in and then a little bit of a walk shame, have a little bit of a chat with someone, do your hair and then get back out. Timing's the key, yeah.
I mean, I think we got to just cover the basics. The main thing is you turn up to a spot, you shouldn't just go sailing. Like if you did that here in Portugal, you could be very, very surprised. So if you can't look at it at low tide, which you can't always look at it at low tide, 100% speak to any local, any sailor, even if it's a surfer, find out, you know, especially if it's high tide and it's dropping, because you might find there's rocks. You might find usually when a wave's breaking, it's breaking in shallower water and you think, oh, no one's hitting that wave. I wonder why. And you go and hit it and you realize there's a rock just a couple of centimeters under the water. So, you know, those are things, you know, you might find out there's a rip. You might find out so many things that change with the tide. So if you can check a beach at low tide, brilliant. If you can't, ask someone and at least watch it for a bit. You know, organize yourself a little bit, find out what's happening. If there's looking like there's some rips somewhere, rocks, other riders, you know, surfers.
If you go to a spot that's quite popular for windsurfing in the area and there's no one out, you ask yourself why. And maybe just round the corner where it's going off and a lot safer, but you're looking at these conditions going, well, maybe do I? Unless you're traverser, I wouldn't recommend it.
No, exactly. and then gear, you know, boards have improved about 1,000,000%, maybe not 1,000,000%, but quite a lot in the last years. And you can now sail bigger wave boards, you know, and especially when you're getting into waves or you're sailing cross off where you don't want so much wind. Because the reason you don't want to be really planing around in cross off is because when you're on the wave, you get the apparent wind from the wave, and then you've got so much power, it's very difficult to wave ride. So, you know, go on.
What's the pro rule on that where wobble out when it's cross off? If you're planing on the way out, you're going to have far too much power in the sail on the wave face.
Yeah.
So the wobble out is.
It can be good though in your first time sailing a spot to have plenty of power. Again, me sailing Hookkeeper for the first time, my first trip to Maui, I didn't sail Hookkeeper. It was like early 2000s, and I had one mast with me because I didn't really have a kit sponsor then. I wasn't very good enough to get a kit sponsor. And I was like, it wasn't a skinny mast. It was like an old Arrows mast. And I was like, I watched Francisco Goya, Policao, all these guys end up on the rocks and literally destroy everything on the first day we were there. Jaws was breaking. So I was like, oh my God, this place just looks horrendous. So I watched it for the whole trip. The next time I went back, I put on the biggest sail. Everyone was going on 4.7s. I'm like 5.3 on this big board. And I planed out like a hero. Couldn't do anything. But the good thing about that is what you'll find is when you sail these certain spots that what it looks like from the beach is not the same that it looks like when you're out there. When you go out, it's fine. As soon as you turn around and look back at the beach, it's like, oh. And if you're sailing on a big, long, sandy beach, it's fine. But you're sailing somewhere like Hookkeeper, where there's like a little keyhole or a little beach, and there's rocks, and there's certain things, you know, the wave breaks in certain places. If you've never sailed there before, you won't have like a clue where you are. It's like so disorientating. So you will need to sail around a bit and understand how the wave works. You might have to go early on a few waves and, you know, kind of suss it out. But you don't need to be a hero straight away.
Yeah, sit there and watch it too when you get there. Don't just rush out unless you know the place. If you've never been to a place before, just sit there, take it in, watch the good guys, watch where they're sailing, watch the guys that are eating it. Why are they eating it? Because they're sailing down there. It's a bit more onshore. You know, you can really work it out. And also when you're riding, if you feel the confidence and you feel that you want to go deep, then follow the good guys in. Or if you want to take, like Rosnaga is quite a good place for, you know, because of the bay there, you can go upwind where it's quite easy to get in and out. And then when you go down to the bottom, it can be quite full on, can it? It's quite a good place like that. So yeah, follow other people. And most importantly, just as Ben said, talk to the locals. Windsurfers are really nice people. They're always up for a chat. Quite often a lot of chat. and find out where to go and where not to go and when's a good time to sail. Like the Canaries here, like the clinics that we do are all tide dependent, because it can be, if it's mega moon and it's high tide here, it's too much water moving in, and sometimes the wind can't get in. So, you know, also check out the tides. The moon can make a big effect. Yeah. Back to some questions, buddy.
Yeah, just going through. Vincenzo tuning in.
Vincenzo, ciao bella.
Portac wave spots. He says some in Italy, some in South Africa, but what's that? Ponta Lema in Cape Verde. El Medano, obviously Tenerife. Best one, Brandon Bay in Ireland. Nice waves, but also nice place, basically. Beers, you know, beach, everything. Good atmosphere as well. With light winds and long
rainbows, lots of rainbows. There's a place where you see 20 rainbows in an hour all the time. It's kind of definitely, because it's covered by mountains, so it rains a lot. So just by the coastline, it's always sunny, but then about 200 yards inland, it's always raining. So you get these epic rainbows everywhere. Yeah, he's a big fan, Vincenzo.
Of rainbows?
Of rainbows and Ireland. He loves
Adrian says he's got a tip. He says water start facing the beach. You can get away from danger, plus you won't surprise riders coming in, which is more respectful. Unless you start onto a wave, because that happens. You're like, oh my God, that wave's going to hit me. I better water start. Then you water start and you're on this wave and someone's going, what are you doing here?
Cool, this is the easiest water start. Just start playing straight away.
We got Marco says, hey, lots of fun on Colin's clinic last year. Any chance or plan to do a joint mini weekend clinic this summer in Medano? Maybe. If I'm not in the caravan.
We were actually talking about it though, but they've kind of, is the PWA on? Or
well, the PWA has just been confirmed as not on. So
that
does,
know if it was official or not.
That does make a difference. Maybe I would like to come to Tenerife actually. Maybe show your interest in the comments if you want to go to a clinic in Tenerife. Let us know.
When's after maybe Pozo? Get the wife over and kid. We got a spare room. Could possibly happen.
I'm definitely keen. We have talked about, just so you know, we are going to make some videos at some point. It was meant to be planned for the last bit, but there's literally been no wind. It has been like the worst start to a season here in Portugal. I've just had a little bit, and then I leave for Pozo on Tuesday, and then the wind kicks in here, and it obviously kicks in the Canaries then as well, and then the Pozo Diaries. So it's kind of a busy schedule. Hang on, Colin. We've just had our first super chat, mate.
Super chat? What's a super chat?
I don't even know how I even make that come up. There we go. Way! We got super chat. $11.99.
Vamos.
Killing it. Has he got a question? Thanks, man, for all the great content you're putting out. Cheers from Thailand, Greece. Well, thank you very much. Cheers. Well, I'm definitely going to crack open a beer. If anyone can hear me in the house, bring me a beer.
Nice.
What we got? I think this is Justin, says, I've got a Simmer 99 flyway with 5 boxes. So you can choose between thruster, speed jumps, or quad for down the line. We've actually, weirdly, that we're going to come on to that, but volume of boards. I think that's a good topic. Again, we've got a lot to cover. We'll probably have to do another podcast or 2 or 3. If you do want to see more of these type of podcasts, we can definitely do them if there's interest. Because I know there's so much to cover on this subject. But what's your feeling of volume, Colin? What's your normal board? What's your big board? Have you got like a certain volume you play with?
I like to have a bit of volume, definitely here in the Canaries. It's a bit gusty on the inside, so I like to, and anywhere really, you know, even when it's cross off, it's nice to have a bit more volume. As you said, the difference of the boards now, you can have a good, not my favorite board, but my favorite big board is a 94. I'm about 84 kilos now. And then sorry,
you've lost weight.
Yeah, I know, I've lost a lot of weight. I can't eat in front of the dog because he just wants to eat everything human. So basically, it makes me not eat. So it's great. No, I've just been eating well and being dad and living a good, healthy life. But yeah, I seem to kind of stick down to 84 kilos now. So after our Cape Town, my smallest board used to be an 89. I used to use that as my go-to board. And then after spending a bit of time with Ben in Cape Town, I came back and got an 84, and it's just a game changer. Like when it's windy, like being able to go from rail to rail. So I think having a big volume board's great when the wind's a bit iffy, but also any chance you can get onto your small board if it's windy enough, it does make a hell of a difference, you know, from going rail to rail. I really agree. Do you agree with that, Ben?
100%. I mean, we've had this case on a few of the clinics where, you know, it's difficult. You're traveling, you want to take minimal equipment, and it's really difficult. Like probably the main question I get asked when we have the Cape Town clinic is, should I take the 80 litre or the 85 or the 100? And I'm like, well, if you can leave it to the last minute, leave it to the last minute, because in Cape Town, you can have 3-4 weather, absolute nuking, or you could have quite a light week if we're having to travel. So what we've noticed is the guys on the big boards, obviously, if it's windy, the lighter riders, you know, in the bottom turn, especially if they're getting better at wave sailing and they're wanting to push hard, it's very difficult in Cape Town to push a lot of volume into the bottom turn, because what happens is if it's a bit choppy when the wind picks up in Cape Town and it starts corking, so you press it down, you hit a chop and it kind of springs you back up, and you know the riders aren't heavy enough to really press into it. So in certain spots it doesn't benefit you having a big board. But as I've been kind of practicing with and trying out recently, I've used a 99 litre in both different styles, like an onshore board and the down the line board from Simmer. And I tell you what, it's super interesting. Like I'm able to ride the 99 Flywave like a proper board. Again, if it was windy, I obviously wouldn't choose to ride the 99. But in terms of float and ride, when the you know cross off conditions and the water's flat and you can really drive hard and you need that sort of, you know, it's really light, I'm talking cross off, then it can be really fun. And it definitely opens up different spots and different conditions.
The bigger boards have much better tails nowadays, don't they? I think that's the difference. Like you can have loads of volume in the middle of the board, but once you get onto the tail, it can feel a lot smaller than it actually is.
Yeah.
Ben Roberts,
Ben Roberts, 82 kilos, has a 98 litre and an 86 litre, and that works really well for me. I can imagine that's a really good setup. And again, depends on the skill level. You know, it definitely does. Like if you're talking about PWA guys, their sort of small board would probably, well, not their small board, their normal board, if it's windy, would be around about their weight in litres. So if they're 80 litres, you might see them on a 78 or something like this, around an 80 litre. I think if you're not as good as that, you know, you're a good sailor, you might be up onto like an 85 litre, you know, maybe, you know, around level to 5 litres should be your sort of, what do they call it? Daily driver, they call it in surfing. It's like their normal board that they use. And then their low end board, which is, you know, your float and ride board, your board you take out when you want it plain early, could be as much. Well, for me, it's always been about 10 litres more than me, 12 litres more than me has been my big board. But I can see that moving up. I can see that moving up just because I'm lucky and I get quite a few different boards to pick from. But also, I can imagine
on the sail size, no? And it depends on the sails that you're putting on it too, eh?
It really does. Or it depends what you're trying to do. If we're talking down the line, float and ride, or we're talking onshore, and you know, you might want something like a free wave in your big board because you might want a single fin, and you might want to, you know, you might have a lot of current where you sail, and you need that drive off the center fin.
The free waves are good nowadays. Like they're you know, they've gone more from that free move, and some of the free waves you can actually turn, and I've seen people get some really gouging turns on a free wave.
Yeah, Stefan says light wind float and ride board. He is about 10 to 15 litres more than your weight. That's what I would say. Like for me, I kind of, if there's enough breeze to like get me going, I can use an 85, which is only 7 to 5 litres. But that's, I'm on the edge, you know. But then when you're on the wave, you've got, if let's say, you know, I don't want to say less ability, but I should be better than a lot of you. I've sailed for about 40 years, done the World Cup, you know, so I can see 10 to 15 would be a really good marker, I would say.
Ben's very efficient. You're very efficient, aren't you, Ben?
I would say I'm pretty efficient.
Yeah.
I get going pretty easily. I can take one board to Cape Town, just to, you know, people have been to Cape Town, just to give you an idea. I vary from 78 to 80 kilos, and I take a 78-litre board to Cape Town. And we could confuse things by saying some boards have got more litres than others, even though they say they've got the same. So there are big 80s and small 80s. If you know, we've got to talk about width. Again, I told you we're going to be jumping around a bit, but if your board is wide, it will feel a lot bigger. If your board is narrow, if it's got rounded rails, the water line, you know, the width of it will feel very rocky, as opposed to something with a bit squarer rails and wider. Would you say?
Yeah, definitely, completely. And you get this a lot with free ride boards, how they explain. People think they're on like a 110-litre board, but they're with a free ride. What they've done is they just spread out the volume, so it's still 110 litres, but it's super wide. So just be very careful of that, because if you're, you know, we get it a little bit here in Tenerife. It's like, yeah, I'm using a 110. You know, if it's like a free move board, and they come here and then get on a 105 or 110 freestyle wave with a bit of a more of a narrow shape, and it's a lot of difference in volume. So just be aware of that too. So yeah, every board's different, I'm afraid. So it's very hard to kind of say that, but if it's true to what they say on the label, it's always, I think, if you're not as efficient, to have a little bit more volume, so you can kind of wobble in or even maybe uphaul it if you have to, just for that safety thing, is ideal.
In an ideal world, you get to try out the board first as well, because not all boards are the same. And don't be fooled that if your mate likes it, you're going to like it. It doesn't work like that. Everyone has different styles. You know, you can move on to fins, quad fin versus tri fin. I am definitely more a quad fin sailor. I like the way it feels on the board, on the wave, and you know, different boards. Like, I know when twin fins came out and quad fins came out first, people are like, oh, I don't like quad fins. But usually that was based off their first quad fin board they used, they didn't like. You know, maybe it was like a bit of a banana, had lots of rocker, it's pushing loads of water, and they're like, oh, it's slow. A quad fin isn't slow. The board might have been slow, but a quad fin isn't necessarily slow. You know, I can see twin fins making a comeback, especially in some of the bigger sizes. They're super loose, playful. I think we're going to have
a twin.
Go again.
I used to set my big quad up as a twin.
Yeah.
Just less drag, and it used to be really nice. Used to turn on the tail. I used to love the good twinser. But yeah, it's interesting what you say, because people do think that quads are slow, but actually they're not once they get going.
Yeah, they feel more planted. And then you've obviously got the tri-fin, which can suit different people. Usually it's the way you bottom turn. If you like to come to the bottom of the wave and then kind of stage it. I don't really like to do that. I kind of like to be in the wave and driving from wherever I want to. Whereas a tri-fin, I always feel I've got to do it a bit differently. Again, I've not really pushed with it because I just kind of don't feel the love. Every so often I'll get a good bit, but it just doesn't suit me. And then you might find the guys that are coming off like freestyle wave boards with single fins, or maybe old school guys who've got a very heavy back foot. They sometimes do like the tri-fin, and they stick a big sort of center fin in, and then they can really drive off the back. Again, I've kind of grown up with a bit of freestyle, learning how to sail with small fins as well. So again, it is different for everybody, and you should definitely experiment if you can, if you've got the option. You know, swap with friends. It really does make a. I'm talking about boards now.
It's also worth learning how to sail off your front foot for anybody out there. I think that's what we deal with most of the time when people want to make that transition from going from like sort of free ride, bump and jump into waves and getting on a wave board. They always find that the tail sinks and turns into wind because there's no volume on the tail. So we spend a lot of time getting people to drive off the front foot to the point where they're getting catapulted forward nearly. And that's like, yeah, brilliant, good job. And then that can be a complete game changer, because then you can jump on any board and use anything once you can drive off your front foot. So worth learning to do that for sure. Adrian, someone had 4 different boards. That's quite.
Let me have a look. So this is Adrian from Cape Town. Obviously, he says I'm using 91 kilos. I have 4 main custom boards: 88, 90, 101, and 115. That is a guy who we have got a video of his garage. So we will be maybe putting the man cave up at some point, so you can be able to check them out. But it's interesting. Like, this is just, I just look at that and people might think that's a lot of boards. But I tell you what, nowadays with secondhand boards, you know, if you go back 10 years, they were still decent. So you've got like quite a few years of sorting through secondhand boards to pick out some nuggets, maybe, you know, and you could create quite a nice quiver if you've got the room.
The only problem with that is you kind of, what size board do I take? Do I take the 88 or do I take the 90 or the 101 or is it 115 whether? It's just confused, like not confusing, but the problem when I got sponsored, then I was like, you know, back in the day when I had two sails, either a 40 or a 50 or a 42 and a 53, and I'd use it whatever. But now you kind of go, oh, is it 50 weather? Is it 47? What are you taking? It's quite confusing for sure.
Well, but then the funny thing is, it says here, I do not believe the single fin is dead. Not at all. It will never die. Not that I often ride one. I disagree. I think it's dead.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's dead. In terms of proper wave sailing, I just don't see the benefit. Yeah, blasting around doing some jumps. Yeah, fine. Free wave, no problem. But in terms of proper wave sailing, I think it's more like you see in surfing. It's like old school longboardy, cruisy. I just don't see how it's better than any of the multi-fin boards that I've used. It's interesting when you go back on a single fin, you do realize you're like, it's a whole different feeling, I would say.
I think if you don't know that feeling, you need to try a few different boards to get that feeling, because then you'd understand. Because maybe, you know, as you said earlier, Ben, if you jump on an old school quad that someone's made in their shed that's got loads of banana, but it's got 4 fins, it could be the most horrendous thing in the world. But then if you jump on something that's just built to plug and play, you know, and it could just feel, suddenly you feel like the best windsurfer in the world. It can really make a difference. So definitely try and jump on a modern quad or any modern sort of twinser and stuff. Or definitely if you're used to the single thing, like a thruster would be perfect board for you.
Yeah, and again, don't just jump on any board because it's got a cool name. Like, I'm gonna just, because it's come to my head, like the Quattro Pyramid back in the day. I remember Levi writing a post on Instagram saying, "Oh, I used the production in his heat in Hookkeeper," and everyone pretty much, a few people I know, went out and bought one, and were like, it don't work so well in, you know, Ross Niger or wherever. You know, obviously boards have changed now. They're actually, their board goes better now, but that board was really good in proper waves. And you've got to remember the easiest way, like I was saying before, if you think of a board with rocker, I'll try and do it to the camera like that. This bit here is just pushing water. As soon as you flatten it up, it goes much better. So that where it is, I mean, this is obviously exaggerated, but you can see if you've got a lot of rocker, if you can't get it onto the flatter spot at the back of the board, it will push a lot of water, which is why I would say some of the top riders, the pro guys, can get a board with rocker going a lot easier because they're agile. They're more, you know, light on their feet, and they get the board up off the bit that's pushing water, and then it starts to go. And that makes a big difference. You know, sometimes putting your foot straps back, certain boards are a bit sticky, sometimes changing the fins. Someone's here, Daniel says, in onshore, straight, stiff fins. And again, you put twin fins in a board, it can kind of lift the nose a little bit sometimes. The shape of the fin can lift the nose. Makes a big difference where you put in those fins, you know, to how it affects the board as well.
It's he's put it straight at the back, onshore gimbal head speed for jumping, bit more drive. That's fair comment.
Yeah, I would say so. I can see twin fins making a comeback. I just have this feeling.
I have in Coned's garage in WA. I have a twin fin that when custom board from like 2000, it was the best. Completely changed my sailing. I went from a single fin to that, and it was unbelievable. So yeah,
me too. We got Richie Atlantic Wind saying, what I see even in pro sailors is that lighter sailors tend to use bigger boards related to their weight than heavier sailors, but with smaller sails usually. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I mean, a lot of the time they don't have the luxury of having all the options sometimes, but I agree, it does make a big difference. And again, if you're, let's say if you're 100 kilos, you've got to get a big board that works well. And there are boards coming now. There are more and more boards coming, but there haven't been over the years. So I think big guys have had a real well, it's been hard for them really to get the equipment they want. You know, if you're a big guy and you want to do float and ride, to go and find a board that can do decent float and ride, be agile, and have the float that the smaller riders have got, it's really difficult. But I don't think it works out quite like that in relative terms. If you look at Maui event, Fiji event, they've all been won by very small guys, light guys. They get around the break easier. They can use smaller boards in, you know, more critical waves. So it's make a difference.
How big's Thomas Traverse's big wakeboard? It's like 69 litres or something, isn't it? It's tiny.
Yeah, but he's lower than that, you know. But
true.
What is interesting is the smaller riders use relatively big sails.
Yeah,
you know, like you'll see Thomas in Pozo, and yes, he takes the biggest size sail he takes is like a 4.2, maybe even a 4.0. Probably doesn't even take that. But you know, normally whenever he goes anywhere, but then actually when it gets windy, he's still on a 3.4, and everyone else is on a 3.4.
Yeah,
it's kind of
the Red Bull Storm Chase when he won it that year, the year that he became world champion. He's the lightest guy on tour, and then won the Red Bull Storm Chase. There we go. Yeah. So that's all in your head. That's the problem, though. We get that with heavy guys really struggle in light winds, and then we get it on the clinics all the time, don't we, Ben? And then the smaller people struggle when it's windy. But you know, again, it's just a head thing. I think the biggest problem with boards is people get lazy. Everything we do on a waveboard, we just do it so much quicker, like getting in and out of the straps. You know, you can't just sit there with your back foot in the back foot strap if the wind drops. Definitely, if it's big, you need to get that back foot out, get your weight forward, get it into the middle of the board, get active with the sail. You know, if you just sit there all day long in the foot straps and waiting for the wind to pick you up, you're going to need a lot more volume and a much bigger fin. I think that's also quite important to know.
Yeah. Makes sense. Andres saying Robbie Nash used a single fin in Jaws not long ago. I can see Jaws. Yeah, no problem. You know, you're not doing kind of snappy turns. You want drive. You want stability. You want to know you're not going to, you know, jump a fin out or whatever. So I can imagine a single fin in Jaws. You know, any big type of waves like that. Yeah, totally. Simon saying 81 kilos, 186 tall. And he loves his BT 85.
Sick photo.
But my BT 99 is the one. BT.
On his photo, he looks like he's on Simmer. Do they make a Simmer BT? ET?
Maybe I should know. If he's on Simmer, I should know.
Again, it all depends on where you're lucky enough or unlucky enough to sail. You know, if you're anywhere in the canoes, like my biggest sails are 5.0. That's unless we do the clinics, and you know, most people, if you go down back at home, people use 5.3s most of the time. Some people even wave sail. Someone's asking the biggest wave sail. Well, you know, 5.7s if you're big is actually, you know, pretty small. Not small. I'd never use a 5.7, but you know, some people do use 5.7s.
Yeah.
Definitely now the sail's getting so much lighter. That
I mean, my 5.3 is usually my biggest wave sail. But Portugal's quite light sometimes, but my 5.0 is my go-to big wave sail. Yeah. So I've got the 5.3 if it was, let's say, onshore and I need to get going. But if I'm wave riding only, a float and ride, I wouldn't usually take the 5.3 because the 5.0 is usually enough to get me on the wave. And then once I'm on the wave, apparent wind, you know, because you're using your speed to boost up the power in your sail. Just going to answer that last comment. So he was on about an 85 fly wave and a 99 fly wave, and he's 81 kilos. And I'm about 81 at the moment. I'm a bit fat, I won't lie. But like I said, that 99 is really surprised me. And the only reason I took it was to do a bit of a test on it because people kept asking me about it. I would say anyone out there can get a go on it. Have a go. Get a hold of Simon. Tell him. But I tell you, it's very interesting. The big boards now are changing and for the better. So you big boys out there, I think you're in for a bit of a treat because I know there's more manufacturers, more brands making bigger boards and putting some effort into the boards, not just pumping out some free wave, rebadging it as a wave board. They're actually making proper big wave boards because there is a market. And I think you guys have been a bit neglected, I would guess, over the years.
My average client probably weighs over, well, 90 kilos, definitely if they're from England.
Yeah.
You know,
We see that in Cape Town, don't we?
Yeah.
You're basically lending your board to a lot of guys on the clinic, you know, to try it out, because, you know, not many people get those opportunities to try boards. And it is definitely one of the things I advise everyone to do. If you go to the beach, you got some friends, or you basically just share around, try different boards, because if you've only ever had one board, you might not know. It might not be set up well. It might be a dog. It might be amazing. It might be, you know, lots of things. But until you try other boards, you will never know how good your board is. You might like it. You might think it's amazing. You never know. You could get another board. It could be even better, or vice versa. So I would say 100%, if you get the opportunity, try as many boards as possible. There is a problem with that. You can then have to go and buy another board because you're like, oh my God, I need that board, or whatever else. So sometimes if you haven't got the money, or you don't want to go out shopping, don't try other boards. Just be happy with what you've got. But
then you can change it up. You can change it up. We had a few people out in the clinic in Cape Town that had for some reason, their deck plates really far forward and their foot straps really far forward. And we're like, well, why are you doing that? You know, and then we changed it. We explained why. We put the straps at the back so she could get onto the tail. And boom, suddenly it was like, wow, these boards are epic now. And so she had exactly the same equipment. We just completely tuned it for her. And again, everybody's different. You know, it depends on the size, how big you are, how small you are. So as what Ben said, if you can't afford having a new board, like we could have sold our boards, 5 times over probably out there. I think I did sell my board out there.
You did sell, yeah. That's what I mean. We've got, you know, let's say, not mentioning names, we had a guy in the clinic. I could literally tell in the first day of filming him, his board was holding him back. Honestly, his board was holding him back. And it's difficult to tell someone that because, you know, it's their board. It's like saying, well, your board's shit, you know, but there's no way you should tell someone that. You just offer them another board to try and see their face change. And they come in, you're like, how was it? And you're like, exactly. Now we can talk about your old board and we can talk about how to go through it. You know, we're not trying to hustle people into buying new boards. It can buy a second-hand board, but what you need to be is fit for the board you're on. You see it in golf, you buy some new clubs and you're fitted for the clubs. You know, people are different heights, people are different, you know, different techniques. Everything it's not so clear always. It can be, but it's not always clear.
Yeah, sure. So I was just reading some. Do you need a multi-fin old freestyle way?
Where are you looking? Go on.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the comments. No.
Okay, tell me which one.
Oh, cool. Oh, there we go. Actually, it just refreshed. Go on and go for it, Ben. Sorry, I'm just refreshing.
We got Andrea saying, but I agree, multi-fins are great. Hard to go back once you've tried it. Yeah, I would agree. We've got Waggy saying the guys at K4, I'm guessing, not K5, but have brought the use of multi-fins to most. Again, you can mix and match. And so, you know, K4 are very cheap, accessible fins, and they can change boards. And I mean, I have been in Waggy's shop in Cape Town when someone has come back after borrowing some fins to try in their board and gone, oh my God, my board's a different board, you know, which is, it's exciting. I love that because for the, you know, price of what, 40 euros or something, you totally transform your board. It's mad.
Game changer.
We've got Mikkel saying the new Banzai is much lighter. Interesting. Speaking to John Sky last night, he told me Baptiste, who's just won the Fiji Pro, is obsessed with weight. Obsessed. Like to a point of crazy. Like chopping down light slalom mass, putting in tiny, you know, extensions, chopping down a normal size boom because he's a short rider. So he doesn't have, you know, much boom tube. He has just extension or chopping down the extension.
Really?
You know, just
he's on the membrane cell, no? Anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. He's obsessed with weight, obsessed, because he wants that rig as light as possible.
Yeah, fair
now,
enough.
I'm not saying that's a good idea because you see, like Costa, as Skyboy said today, he's like, Costa goes out with normal kit, goes and smashes it, but he's a big lad, you know. So it's interesting. There's different takes on it.
I think also like the when Costa wipes out to when Baptiste wipes out, there's a lot of more weight going towards that sail and that panel. You know, Baptiste, we've seen him send it so hard in Cape Town, and he does bail, but he's 50 kilos of 65 kilos of spinning around to the big man going over. There's a lot of difference.
He's a big fella, and it's interesting in the comments right now. Monofilm or X-Play? Tell me what sail you would pick, monofilm or X-Play. Just go straight comments. I just want to see what the general thought is.
And you? Oh, we'll come back to that.
I'm going to come back to it. I just want to see what everyone who's watching now, if they have a monofilm wave sail or an X-Play wave sail, because I'm genuinely interested.
Going back to the light sails is great if you can afford it and stuff, but you get to a point where sometimes you need a sail to survive too in some conditions. So definitely if you're on the smaller sails, if you ever get a light sail or if you've got an option of a membrane sail, whatever it is on your bigger ones, but definitely on the smaller ones, I'd stick to the strength for sure, because it could get quite gnarly when it's free stem weather and stuff.
Sails are not cheap right now.
No, they're not cheap.
I had a shock when I looked the other day. They're expensive. So if you're buying a new sail, it's all right having a light sail, but it depends how much money you've got. If you buy, I would imagine you buy a new sail, you want it to last, or do you want it light? What would you prefer? It lasts less time and it's light, or it's a little bit heavier and it lasts longer? I mean, they're definitely interesting conversations.
It's definitely.
Aero in Florida says, I guess that's Florida, he's got a 6.7 blade as his light wind gear and a big floaty board. I'm jealous of windy places where you get away with a 5 something. I can imagine you must be like hurting hearing, my biggest sails are 5.3, 5.0.
So, but again, you can, if you can learn to be a bit more efficient, you can probably get away with a bit more of a smaller sail. I don't know. It depends. Maybe you're on a really small sail and everybody else is on 8.6s and stuff. But, normally if people are out on 6.5s and stuff, I can probably plane on a 5.3 and a wave board with a bit of volume, or definitely like a freestyle wave with a bit more volume. So again, just being a bit more efficient with the rig, being not so lazy with your feet, that can really help, maybe get you on a smaller sail. But yeah, some people do. Like I grew up on a lake, so I had a 5.5 and a 6.5. That was my sail, and that's it.
No, I was going to say, I definitely think sailing, learning on a lake with the gustiness and all that, and then racing as well. I know you've done a bit of racing. That really helps your efficiency. When you're trying to beat someone, you've all got the same size sail, because that was the rules back when I was racing. So the only way to beat them is to be the first to get planing, to keep planing. So you learn those. I know I learned them like back when I was a kid, and they've definitely put me in good stead, going into wave sailing.
It's so surprising how many people just look at their hands and feet when they're windsurfing and don't actually look around the surroundings and look upwind mainly to see what gusts are hitting you and what waves are coming. That's, again, what we do a lot of. If you can imagine driving a car and looking at your feet or your hands all the time, you'd crash straight away. So have a look around, enjoy the view, use your eyes a bit.
And if you want to go upwind, look upwind. We've had that so many times. It makes such a difference. If you look downwind or wherever, you're going to go where you look most of the time. So if you're angling your body and you're looking upwind, it will put pressure on that windward rail and definitely help you go.
There's 2 ways of looking. You can look with your head or you can look with your eyes. And
good point.
Yeah, it's quite a good one. Definitely, if you're jumping really high and you're overpowered, I don't recommend looking with your head. Just look with your eyes. So,
hang on. More questions?
Yeah.
We've got Tannel saying, really depends on the location. In Taiwan, my only board is an 86 litre and sails go from 3.0, 3.5, 4.2, and he's 97 kilos.
Nice.
So I'm guessing it's a pretty windy spot. I mean, like I said, if you go to Pozo, these numbers are going to be a little bit different. I'm kind of talking in that general stage, I guess. We got Mike saying back in the day, 90s, I used an F2 Wave 82 with a 6.2 Neil Pride Wave Pro, but got it to work when the wind was a bit lighter and way too heavy for that setup now, and I'm in his 50s.
So I learnt Vulcan and Spock on a 69-litre wakeboard with a 5.3 and a 30% carbon mast back in the day. But now if I look at the same board and go, shit, I bet I don't even know if I can sail it, you know, even though like I learned to duck tack on it and like push tack and stuff. So yeah, it's a bit, looking back at some of the boards, like you think, oh yeah, or you know, the board that you used to have the Mistral, I don't know, explosion or something. You look at it now, and if you get the chance to sail it, it's like, oh my god, how did we do it?
Yeah. Nice. Everything's changed, hasn't it? Like width wise, especially.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. It's easier. Basically, we changed for the better. I think that was the main thing. Like, it's all good having these old school boards and stuff, but if you can jump on something that just makes you turn better and makes you a better windsurfer, why not do it? Like, you know, we get a lot of guys or you know, people that, I can't say because I don't want to push the lessons, but like, you know, people get stuck in a trap for 20 years because no one says, actually, if you move your hand here, or why are you saying with your lines like that, or make your foot straps, they're foot straps, not toe straps, you know, completely change their saying. And they go, fuck, why didn't someone tell me that 20 years ago? It's like, you know, you love this sport, you travel the world for 20 years, go and put your hand in your pocket and get someone to tell you how to set up your board and, you know, give yourself a lesson. And it'll be a game changer.
You say you're not pushing the cleans, but I honestly think you should in that respect, because I think some people think, nah, don't need a clinic. And that was the same in any sport. You can gain a lot, especially the first one. Sometimes, like you say, you tell someone one thing and it is like a massive game changer. You know, again, it's not for everyone, but I would say the majority of people in their first clinic walk away going, oh my God, I've got a lot to work on. I learned that, did that. It's crazy, you know. Anyway, Gust Hunter says he can't wait for big proper wakeboards. He's 110 kilos. I can imagine it must be gutting, you know, like for you to have the equivalent of what I've gotten in 99, it's something like 130-litre wakeboard.
It's bigger. There are custom. I've seen Jeff's got some epic custom boards from Ivan, hasn't it? Some really nice sizes, and they're like 115, but really nice tails. I was going to say, if anybody's got one, I'd definitely take it. Or if you can ever get your hands on, I think it was the first when Brasilio joined Goya, they made a board for Dave White that was a 118, and it was so good. I think Matt Pritchard said it was one of the best big boards he's ever used, and bought one. It was so good. It's like a massive floaty board, like a SUP, but on the tail, when you got on the tail, it just reacted like a 90-litre board. So for any of the big guys out there, it's like the 2000 and I don't know, 80 or the first year that Brasilio did the yellow board, the 118 for big guys. That's a great board. You should be able to find one quite cheap too, if you can find one.
Well, you say that, but they're usually those big boards. They hold on to them.
Yeah, no, I've been trying to get one ever since I used it in Baja about 10 years ago, and yeah, as you said, no one will get rid of that board. So if anybody's got 118.
So twins have never enough fin size for plodding and early planing. Lots of drag in light winds. The only thing they are loose as a goose and fun when windy. 110 kilos. Langy in Gero. Babylon. Langy.
Good on.
You remember Langy, Cole?
Mate, Langy gave me my first battered Mars bar. Have you ever had a battered Mars bar?
That sounds so wrong.
That sounds so wrong. Yeah, let me reframe that. Langy used to have a caravan on Coronation Beach, and he used to sell.
That sounds worse.
Here's the man that sat in a caravan. Okay,
I'm not enticing young boys in with battered Mars bars.
Okay, how can I dig myself out of this? Langy, how are you? So Langy's a bit of a local legend from Coronation Beach. Used to be up there with Francisco Goya and the boys and did his knee in, and then retired at Coronation Beach in a caravan and used to sell a bit of out the back door. And he used to also sell battered Mars bars. That's a Mars bar and batter. If you've ever had one, I'd highly recommend it. It's quite an experience. You're right there, Ben.
Oh my God. I can tell you my first experience of Langy, if we're going on Langy stories. Nalu, or we might not mention it, the place up north. First time in Australia. This guy's drinking Jack and Cokes out of a can on the beach with a bandana on. he was quite a big chap back then. He's lost a lot of weight, but he was quite a big chap. And I thought, who's this big fella? And he went, I put the GoPro on the mast. And he's like, what are you doing? You're going to film? Oh, you're going to put it on YouTube? I was like, oh, in an Aussie accent. That was a bad Aussie accent. Anyway, I come in from sailing. He's still drinking on the beach. And this is not to be recommended. But he then went out and I thought, oh, this should be fun. He absolutely ripped up the place. Massive aerials, like fat gouges, half an hour, 40 minutes shred, came in, buggered off. And I was like, wow.
Did he come in for his standard no-handed 360?
No, he walked up the cliff with it on his head, which was kind of impressive.
He used to always come into Coros flat out on a down window, no-handed, just come in and lay down a 360. That used to be Langley's style. It was quite legend.
Oh, okay. Back to the comments. Jeff, how
your X-Ply?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna come on to the X-Ply monofilm thing now, but let me just go through these, just catch up. I'm probably miles behind, but Jeff says recognize the change can feel better sometimes. I think it doesn't even have to be better, just change can be good. I think yeah, that's good. That is good. Are you ready to sell your code 135? I think there's a few boys tuning in now. Bruno says, hey, how we doing? Right. I'm going to just run through these. Let's see if I can miss. What am I doing? No, I've been using it with Lightwind Freestar. Okay, here we go. X-Ply or monofilm? This is the official survey with Windsurfing.TV. You're going to stay counting. Rich says X-Ply. Adrian says X-Ply. Dacron or vinyl, but I'm going to ignore that because we're just going X-Ply. We got X-Ply, 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 Mylar, X-Ply with monofilm in the window. I think that's a good call. Dacron. I like monofilm, but I wouldn't want to bring it through a tough shore break. Class says Ezzy X-Ply, monofilm. 900 euros. I would say that was mostly X-Ply, looking at the guys that actually replied.
And you?
Well, I can safely say if I wasn't sponsored, would it make a difference? Actually, I would always have a monofilm window. Like for me, there's nothing worse than an X-Ply.
Are we just talking about the main panel? Are we?
The main panel in front of your eyes, because for some reason when you stick, like X-Ply is basically two bits of monofilm stuck together with lines of Kevlar in it, as far as I understand. But the problem is with that, you get this reflection on it somehow, and it's very difficult to see through it unless it's brand new. Yeah, maybe that's changed now because they have started doing bigger X-Ply. But I quite like a monofilm window, and I'm not opposed to X-Ply in the other places. But I like the monofilm feel. It feels crisper. A monofilm, an X-Ply sail always feels a little bit softer, which again can feel nice. I like the crisp feel. But it obviously, if you're in Australia or in somewhere where the sun's super strong, monofilm sail is not going to last as long as an X-Ply one. That's just nature.
I always found if it was an old sail, like if I had to buy, like when I first went traveling, I had to buy one sail and I had a budget. I bought an Ezzy just because of the X-Ply. So when the monofilm went, it still had the sail ridged together. I know Ben saying about the duct tape. I used to literally stick each little triangle bit together with duct tape. That was a great sail. But nowadays, I think the problem with the X-Ply monofilm, it doesn't break. So if something gives, you were talking about all that pressure of water going down. Now, if the monofilm panel doesn't break, it will do you love to leach, or it's going to break somewhere else. So sometimes it can really ruin your sail. Where I don't know, it's a tricky one. But I also just love the vision. I can't, I like to be able to see through the sail and stuff like that. So I'm definitely monofilm all the way.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I think we won't go too long because we could do a lot of these ones, and if there's enough people who want it, let us know in the comments.
It was a bit of a test, wasn't it, to see if we have good chat, and potentially we could do some maybe video stuff, and in the future, eh, Ben? We were talking.
Yeah, there's a load of comments going through because talk about harness lines, and I would agree it's one of the first things that the harness line inspector over there decides on the clinic on the first day. Literally, everyone gets a smack around the chops. I'm a bit more relaxed. Like if people want short lines, fine. But I definitely say if you look at the PWA, the world-class sailors all in the world, the average size line is a 32. I would say something like that. It's crazy. You know, and a lot of the guys, the top guys, are longer. There is a reason for that. You know, you get further away from the rig, you can feel the rig more. You know, you're less likely to get catapulted because you can get your weight down and back. You know, float and ride especially, you can sit in it and relax rather than you can move around the sail. You can almost pump in the lines. You know, short lines, you end up like sailing like this, which
you're on your tiptoes a lot. You're going to get catapulted. Foot straps. That's also on day one, isn't it? It's like
strap.
Believe it or not, though, foot straps is such an important thing if you get into wave sailing with the jumping and bottom turning, because if you jump and land on your tiptoes and you can't grip the back of the board and you know, move your feet in the foot straps, you're really going to hurt yourself. And definitely, you know, like carve jibing, even with tiny foot straps, you're on your tiptoes. And when you're wave riding, it's kind of you're driving through that front foot strap too, you know. So make sure they're big. Says it in the name, foot straps, not toe straps, for any of our friends out there.
100%. Ben Roberts says living in a shed at Point Moore in Jarrow with Colin 20 years ago was a good learning experience.
Living the dream, Benny, living the dream.
Did he have a bad Mars bar as well?
Yeah, I'm never going to let that down, am I? I heard that Langy replied, did he? That's going to be abuse for the rest of the next year. Great. Oh, that's it. See, you got to set the dog and everything now. It's all going on. Right.
Yeah, Marco says my first clinic with Colin got me a completely unexpected better level of wave sailing, much more control of the kit. It's surprising. Honestly, I'm not just saying that, especially Colin as well. You know, just those little tweaks, little pointers can be gold. And you might think, oh yeah, I can get them off the internet. You can, but it's really, there's no better way than when someone points it out with you at the beach, or you just sail around with people who do clinics. You will find most of them can't keep their mouth shut if you've got something bad. It's like, I find it really difficult. I'm like, Jesus Christ, what are you doing? So if you just sail around looking like whatever you're doing, chances are Gem Hall, Colin, whoever it might be, will be saying
I think, for the clinic side of thing, the video, we do a lot of that, don't we, Ben? Like for teaching, I think that is the most important thing, and you can do that at home. You know, video yourself and stuff. But analyze it, even if it is yourself or your mate, or you know, get a coach, send it to one of us or something, and you can really. We have suicide watch sometimes when people watch themselves on the video. It can be quite heartbreaking, but it's really good platform for yourself to go, shit, the bed, is that me? I need to sort it out. And it, you know, after the suicide watch, the next day is people just grow some and they just improve so much because they're so haunted by what they see.
It's very true. Suicide watch. We have to hide like sharp objects and whatever because this is a genuine situation. I'll explain. If any of you are thinking of coming on a clinic, just let this will happen. It's epic. It's probably the best day sailing of your life. You come in feeling like a king. You have slayed the waves. You were polar cow. You were doing the biggest jumps of your life, whatever it might be. We sometimes, if we don't show you the video that night, it's because we like to let you live in the moment for at least a night. The worst thing can someone be like hassling, come on, let's see the video. Let's see the video. We're like, yeah, just we'll watch it tomorrow morning, because you at least want a night of like, yeah, that was good. Because don't get me wrong, it doesn't matter how you're sailing. Windsurfing comes from the feeling of sailing. That's the main thing. The clinics is just to help you get better. Anyway, so you live in that feeling. The next morning, like Colin said, suicide watch, because people are looking at themselves going, but I think you missed my best wave. And then the realization on their face when they remember a certain part of the wave or something, and they're like,
waving or something.
yeah, and they're like, Oh no, that was it.
Yeah.
You know, and you realise you're not going as vertical as you thought you was. You're not throwing as much spray. You're not maybe going as fast. You know, you're not going as high. These are just normal things that you like. It's like a humility thing. It's like you humbles you. Like, and don't get me wrong, we've all been there. Like me especially. I remember watching my first videos when I'm trying to get on the World Cup and trying to, you know, get better back loops or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, I think you missed my big one. And then I'm like, oh no, that was it. Anyway, okay, I think we will we'll leave it there. We've got plenty more to do. We will do another one of these if you guys like it. Massive thanks to Cole. Cheers, dude.
Thanks, Ben. Take it easy, and thanks everybody for tuning in. And we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, and if you do fancy doing a clinic this summer, like I said, windsurf coaching, he's doing a load this summer. I'm not doing any at this moment in time because I think I'm going to be a busy boy. Hey! Yeah, and if you do come to clinic with Colin, you can help feed his baby. Let's turn it like African charity.
He's got a jacket on there. That's the weather we're having here in Tenerife. My other half's Brazilian, so as soon as the clouds come out, that's it. When they close.
Shark.
There we go.
Hey.
Right. Take it easy.
Thanks, mate.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
All right. So there you go. Massive thanks to Colin for that. Like I said, we will be doing, I think, a few more of these. They're quite easy. They're quite relaxed, obviously not very structured. So it does bounce around a bit. But I think there's some gems for you to take away with. My plan is to make some videos of like topics we touch on in these videos, but with video to highlight the things, because it's obviously much easier if you can see it and put something to it. And also what I want to do is do progression videos with you guys out there. So if you're at the beach when I've got the camera and there's some move you want to work on, maybe you could be starring in one of these videos, because I think that's sometimes the best way to learn is to see progression and to see how people with the same problem as you fix it. There we go. Stay tuned to the channel. If you want to chip in any beer money, massive thanks. If not, no stress. It will be for free. Massive thanks to the super chat we got earlier. That was unexpected. Didn't know that was coming. So massive thanks for that. We're going to put him on now. This guy, Lucas. What a legend. What a legend. Right. See you for the next one. And I need to work out where this end thing is. Bye.